Okay, welcome everybody. Warm welcome to Bathavon Area Forum on this definite winter's day. As you probably just heard, this meeting is being recorded. It will be placed on the council's YouTube channel so people can view afterwards. If you do not wish to appear, then please just turn your video off. The forum is an open forum and we always encourage discussion and contributions. We would ask that respect is given to all other people. We don't all have the same views, which is a positive point, and we should embrace that positivity. The Bathavon Area Forum is one of 5, and we built a reputation amongst key decision makers of being well informed and positive. Our contributions are valued, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your attendance now and previously, and for the forthcoming input to this session. Just a couple of things before we start. There's a matter of process, really. Could I ask that we keep background noise to minimum by always being on mute when not speaking? Then, of course, unmute to speak. I know we all get that wrong. I've been using online technology for some 5 years now, and I still get it wrong. Some don't learn. And if you wish to speak, could you please use the raise hand, which is on the reactions icon. There's a raise hand bar, and that will give us notice you wish to speak, and then you'll be asked to speak. So thank you. First item on the agenda is local elections, and I've been asked to present the following. Changes in national legislation mean that for the first time, voters will need to show photographic ID when they go to the polling station to vote in the local elections. Many people will have an acceptable form of photo ID, such as bus passes, passports, driving license. Those that do not carry can apply for a free voter authority certificate online or by completing a paper form. They can also apply in person at the Guildhall in Bath, and the deadline for these applications is 5 p.m. Tuesday, the 25th of April. So that's what, 6 weeks away-ish? Full details will be circulated after the meeting, and we should be grateful if you would circulate this within your own networks. That'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you. First item on the agenda, the local plan. So with no further ado, I introduce Stephen George, the Senior Planning Officer within Planning Policy, with an update on how climate resilience, natural space biodiversity, affordable housing, the list goes on, how these and other priorities are being addressed in the local plan and how we can engage in the process. So Stephen, over to you.
Thank you very much, John. That's very kind of you. And thank you all for inviting me to come along to your meeting tonight. Mark, could you share the presentation, please? Thank you. Could you put a full screen if possible? Thanks. I'll make a start. So I just wanted to update you on the local plan partial update that is has just been adopted by the council, and will now be used in the determination of planning applications. Just to recap on its scope was to update our planning policies to better address the climate and ecological emergencies following the council's declaration of these emergencies, and we're the first council in the country to adopt a new policy on a net zero carbon for new housing development. So I think that's a real achievement for the council. And some of the other aspects that were important was to replenish the housing supply that we provide. We're required to provide a 5-year housing land supply. So that was a really important part of the local plan partial update. And we've also addressed a limited range of some other local issues as well that were really quite important in terms of nature recovery and in terms of student accommodation, for example. And we've also amended some of the policies for clarity and to ensure they're better aligned with up-to-date national policy. So, but the important thing is we've now adopted that plan, and we're moving forward to the new local plan, which is on the next slide, please, Mark. Right. So the new local plan is really looking forward, and so this is a whole review of the planning policy framework that we have that covers the whole district, and this will be the main statutory planning policy framework for managing change over the next 20 years. We've just gone on to the next slide, Mark. You should be able to use the arrow key, I think, to move it down. Yeah, great, thank you. So the new local plan will be informed by our corporate priorities, by relevant evidence and strategies, for example, the economic strategy that we're working on at the moment, and it will reflect recent consultations and stakeholder engagement, and I'll talk more about that later on. So the purpose is really to set out the spatial priorities, the policy framework, and we'll seek to allocate sites for development, and the whole plan will be used in the determination of planning applications. So it's quite an important document for managing that change. So we seek to balance the protection of things that we value. So, for example, landscapes and certain land uses as well. So, kind of protecting employment sites, for example. But also providing a flexible approach where we can that allows for this for market changes and for innovations to happen, and for the delivery of key projects and development. Yeah, so the new so for the new local plan, it's a real opportunity to start again if we need to. I mean, one of the key things that I think we need to do is to review the existing plan and see how well that's performed. But it's also an opportunity to capture this fresh thinking and innovative ideas, because we want to provide the best possible planning framework for managing change and for delivering the places that we want to live in and protecting what we value. So part of what we're doing at the moment, and we're at the very early stages of producing the local plan, is trying to trying to work out what our priorities are. How do we want to achieve a healthy and resilient places and enable more sustainable lifestyles? Where should we allow new development to meet our housing needs and for sustainable economic development? And what are the tensions with development in the AONB and within the setting of the World Heritage Site? I think we'd all agree that those issues are particularly important. And how can we best respond to the climate and nature emergencies? So that's taking forward perhaps some of the policy framework that we established in the local plan partial update. And what could bolder decisions do we need to take? I think now is the opportunity to start exploring those and to start kind of shaping the local plan. So next slide, please, Mark. So just as an overview of our programme, we had a launch document at the end of last year, and we're in the phase now where we're starting to identify the issues and priorities. And some of you would have attended the workshops that we recently held. And then so we'll start to assimilate the feedback from those workshops and some of the findings from the evidence base, and we'll start to identify some of the options and the sites that can inform the local plan. And we'll have some more workshops, kind of May-June time. Dates are yet to be finalised on that, and we'll be working towards the options document, and we hope to have a formal consultation on that towards the end of the year. And then next year we'll work towards producing our draft plan, which is the plan that the council will want to adopt. And the point of that is so we'll have another a more formal consultation stage on the draft plan, and we'll go into examination phase after that. But I think this diagram kind of usefully illustrates the fact that we start off quite broadly and can narrow down as we go through the process. Next slide, please, Mark. So the workshops that we held, we held a number of workshops in the rural areas, and also we had a workshop on Bath and environs. And those workshops were run using some of the themes that have derived from the placemaking charter that we produced in 2021. So those themes, as you can see there, zero carbon and climate resilience, moving around, natural spaces and biodiversity, identity and belonging, housing and shared prosperity, and healthy and inclusive communities. If we can just go on to the next slide, please. So some of the key values that emerged out of the workshops were attractive countryside, a landscape quality and beauty, a strong community ethos that came through actually quite a lot. It was I think it was mentioned in all the workshops that I attended. This richness and variety of wildlife, the character of villages, the importance of local history and heritage, and recreational opportunities. Next slide, please. So some of the key issues that emerged as well. In terms of zero carbon, there was call for a strategic approach, which is something that we can certainly adopt in, or we can certainly put into the local plan. But also this work at community level about building resilience and sharing good practice. And I think that's kind of where the communities can come together and share their knowledge and experience of how these things can be achieved. So looking at the renewable energy opportunities as well. So in terms of moving around, it's about improving the connectivity to cities and to other places, to towns. Better walking and cycling opportunities, including this hub and spoke approach to key nodes. So looking at the whole journey, basically. In terms of natural spaces, it's about protecting nature and improving biodiversity and wildlife connectivity. The importance of dark skies was mentioned. More guidance for farming and improved access to food growing. I think some of the other issues about kind of retaining character, how important community facilities are, but also about having some sustainable growth. For example, local co-working spaces. There was talk about the importance of affordable housing, smaller homes, for example, for downsizing, but also lifetime and accessible homes, and also looking at providing employment opportunities. And then finally looking at good quality public spaces, community hubs, which could be used for all sorts of purposes, access to health facilities, and livable kind of rural neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So this is the final slide, and it's really just just trying to draw on the things that I've been talking about. So the next step is about using the resources that I've outlined, and some of the evidence base that we've commissioned, and really devising the options about how we could change in the future. And then what we need to do is test and refine these emerging ideas and options, and that's what we'll do at the further workshops. And then we'll publish the local plan options document in the winter, and that will be a more formal consultation stage. And hopefully we can get a really good response to that. And then following that, I will work towards the draft plan. So that's the end of the presentation. And I'm more than happy to take any questions that people may have.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Very interesting. Open to questions from the floor. No? Brian. Sorry, you're on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Just a couple of questions I'd like to ask on this. Bearing in mind this is all parish councils, how do the planning department regard parish councils with regard to planning applications?
Do you mean as regards the process?
As regards to their opinions and their recommendations for what should happen. Are we taken seriously, in other words?
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean, it's a key part of the process in terms of the determination of planning applications. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Right, the other thing, sorry, I'm losing my voice. We're in the process, and have been in the process over a number of years, in reviewing neighbourhood plan that we have got, are the facilities going to be available from planning to assist on that? And the same applies with the conservation area appraisal, again, which has been going on, certainly as far as we're concerned, for a long, long time. And all we've been told at the present moment is we don't have the resources available to be able to deal, particularly with the conservation area reappraisal. Again, what is the situation now?
Yeah, Richard, do you want to come in and respond to that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so, Steve. Evening, everybody. Richard Dayon. So I manage the planning policy team. So in terms of your questions there, Brian, yes, very much. We will continue to support parishes in preparing and reviewing their neighbourhood plans. So please get in contact with us when you're thinking about starting that review process, and we're more than happy to provide advice and support for that. What I would suggest is that probably in reviewing that neighbourhood plan, that you try and align it as best as possible with the local plan programme, because what we don't want to end up in a position where you and other parishes put a lot of work into neighbourhood plans, and then the local plan comes along afterwards and almost sort of supersedes them. So we want to avoid that position. So I think doing the aligning neighbourhood plan work with the local plan is the way to go. In terms of conservation area appraisals, those are reviewed and conservation area boundaries are defined under sort of separate legislation, so separate from the local plan, and that's obviously another part of the planning service. Our difficulty, as obviously you just said there, is resourcing all of those conservation area appraisals, and to this point we've tended to focus our resources and prioritise conservation area appraisals where new development and where changes is happening, for hopefully, I think you'll agree, understandable reasons. But what I would say again is if you can just email myself and Paula Freeland as the conservation team manager with regards to, in effect, why you feel the conservation area appraisal for Englishcombe needs to be progressed and needs to be brought forward quickly. As I say, we're more than happy to look at that and come back to you and discuss further.
Okay, I have spoken to Paula about this because we did in fact have a young lady who was helping us with the appraisal. It's virtually completed and has been completed for some considerable time. It's just a question of really completing the whole thing and putting it in a formal way. The amendments that we wanted to make have been, I think, agreed in principle, but it's just a question of getting the additional area actually recognised and properly documented.
Okay, but I'll discuss that, Brian. I'll discuss that with Paula direct, and one of us to come back to you as quickly as possible. That's excellent.
I'll make contact with Paula and have a chat about it and see how we can best progress it. We had a very good conversation a matter of about 6 months ago, and I do appreciate the difficulty that she has got with the shortage of personnel to be able to deal with this.
Okay, yeah, as you say, hopefully we can take it forward. It does sound like it's sort of 80 to 90% there. So really, hopefully, as I say, we can take that forward. But let's discuss that offline with Paula Freeland. That's fine. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian and Richard. Fiona Gurley, Southstoke.
Thank you. Yes, you said that you took the concerns of parish council seriously. How seriously do you take the concerns of the public? I mean, as you're all aware, we have got a large development which developers would like to put on the Southstoke Plateau, and there's a lot of public opposition to it. How much of that is taken into consideration and will be taken into consideration in the next phase in the next plan?
Yeah, well, it's all part of the process. It's in terms of the evidence base that we have to look at. And so we look at the evidence base for more housing, for example. and we look at the and we're required to provide to respond to the government requirement to have a 5-year housing land supply. So we do, but so we have to take into account all sorts of information, including from the public, in terms of whether they support a proposal or they don't support a proposal. So it's I don't think we can that we can make a local plan just on the basis of public opinion, but it certainly helps to shape it, and certainly helps to inform what we say in the local plan.
And if I can just add that as well, that's, you know, Steve's absolutely right. We have to take account of the evidence and what that's telling us, as well as obviously the conversations that we're having with communities, and that's the very reason we're trying to engage communities, you know, right from the start of this local plan, so that we can understand what the key issues are that communities want addressed through the local plan and in planning for change. But also, not only that, but also to hopefully inform yourselves as community representatives, if you like, of the requirements upon us from a planning and an evidence-based perspective, in order that we can continue to have that conversation and as far as possible, you know, hopefully agree in effect a sort of mutually acceptable way forward, although accepting, you know, that may be difficult.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you. Right, as there are no more questions, thank you very much for the update on the local plan. That's much appreciated. Next up is rural transport. Hand over to Phil Wright, who's a public transport program manager at WECA, to explain the introduction of, as I understand it, demand responsive transport and what it offers. This will be half an hour, including feedback, including Q&A. So,
Right.
Bill, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, hopefully it won't take too long. I've got a fairly short presentation, which I'll run through. I've got my colleague Clara, who's here from one of the operators, who is going to hopefully help me with some of the more technical questions. But I'll give some background and give you an update, and then Clara can hopefully give you some more detailed information. And then, yeah, please do ask any questions at that point. Let me just make sure I can work out how to share the screen. Is that, everybody can see that now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's start from the top. Demand responsive transport, as John just said, DRT. That's a standard industry term. The local brand we've gone with is Westlink, which is what we will hopefully start to see more widely and get people used to that name. So what I'm going to skim through today is, what is Westlink? Where will it operate? Which I think is really important. How will it operate? How much will it cost? And how will it work? And hopefully that will answer a lot of the questions, but I appreciate it's a new thing. There'll be lots of questions, I'm sure, that will spin out of that, and that's absolutely fine. And I certainly won't necessarily know all the answers, so I will take things away if I can't answer all the questions. So it's a demand responsive transport, as it says, the name says on the tin. What that means is it's not a public bus service as you would know it. It's not a fixed route. It does not go on a fixed route. It doesn't have a fixed timetable. It will pick you up from an adjacent stop, and it will take you to anywhere else within that operating zone, and I'll get onto the zones in a minute. I mean, certainly I've been out talking to lots of, I've done some of these presentations, and I've been talking to lots of community groups. The power of it is the potential of it is quite huge, actually. If you look at the opportunities to go to places which previously historically haven't had bus services or that services have long disappeared, or they've got services which maybe historically have not run very often. So that there is the potential actually to open up opportunities here for people to travel in ways they've never really previously had the opportunity to travel. So I think there's a really good chance that it could change how people travel. It doesn't go door to door, although I should hasten to add, it will, if you have got a disability, you can flag that when you make the booking, and it can pick you up from your property or your destination, wherever it is you're being picked up from. And yeah, that's something that we were very keen to include. But for most of us, it will be a place where you'll go to your local bus stop, you'll get picked up from there, and it will take you to another local bus stop, which is hopefully going to drive more people to use the background bus network and use that for connections. But it could also take you to your local community, other facilities within the local community. Clearly, we want to help to replace car travel with it. And certainly where buses are not available, it will give a service to people. And I guess the important thing, I always think it's a slightly spurious point to make, it doesn't run if there's no bookings. So it's not like a bus that will run around empty when nobody's on it. It just won't run if there's nothing being booked. So the zones. Some of you may have, I don't know, some of you may have seen a map that we had initially when we put this together, and Clara and other colleagues helpfully have helped us to try and simplify that. It still looked quite complicated probably, but if you'd have seen the original map we had, it was far more complicated than this. Essentially, it's split into 3 zones. The red zone or orange zone, whatever colour you want to call it, sort of in the North Bristol, Avonmouth area, the reason why that is separate is because there was a separate project already working on this called the Future Transport Zone project, looking specifically around key employment sites in that North Fringe Avonmouth area and how you connect people into it. We couldn't break that, we couldn't change that. So what we've done principally is break it into 2 zones, a northern zone and a southern zone. You might notice 2 other slightly different colours there, with a Keynsham purple and a sort of Avonmouth 7-side yellow. That's because these are classed as special zones, inverted commas. The Keynsham zone, because the boundary between the northern zone and the southern zone, as you can see, kind of divides Keynsham in many ways, and would have meant that people living just north of Keynsham technically couldn't travel into Keynsham. So we've created a special zone where you can travel into Keynsham from the northern zone as well as the southern zone, and likewise for the zone in 7 side as well. It seemed a bit crazy that you wouldn't be able to travel from the southern zone as well as the DDRT zone, the FTZ zones I referenced there. Now, again, the shape of it might look a bit strange to you. For example, you will see strange boundaries. There's 2 zones in, well, there's 1 large zone that connects in from South Bristol. So this is where we've identified that there are very low bus service provision, and there needs to be a connection in to people from those services. I guess the thing to flag with this is we are trialing something here. We don't, this is the first time we've done anything like this on this scale, and we are aware of the fact that we might make mistakes early on. It's not fixed. We will have to learn and adjust as we go. There will be lessons that we will learn as we start to deliver this. But this is the point we've started at. We're very happy to take comments about potential future iterations and what they may look like. And I'm sure we'll learn lessons in the early days of where we realise we've got things wrong. But those boundaries were set up on what we believed would be helpful to where people currently don't have access necessarily to a particularly great bus service, and we can give them access to hopefully something to help them to get around. This just gives you a little bit more of a flavour for this specific part of the region, and you can see the boundary in a bit more detail there. It does cover Odd Down Park and Ride, so there will be an interchange at Odd Down, and there is a bus service, the 522, which will be able to take you in there. Obviously, there are other bus services as well coming in from the southern part of the region that will be able to take you in as well. But the intention is that you won't be able to get this vehicle into Central Bath. You will have to interchange. The interchange will be at Odd Down, or it could be anywhere else, Radstock, Midsummer Norton, wherever it may be, that you want to do that interchange. But the intention is that you will be, if you want to go into Bath, and you want to go into any parts of the city, you will have to interchange with the other background bus services, with the intention that we're going to drive that demand to those services to make them more commercially viable, to make sure we don't lose them. That's part of the reasoning behind that. How will it operate? Well, it will be an app-based journey booking. You'll be free to download via the website. We're hoping to have the first look at that, and Clara, I'm sure, will come on to it very shortly, next week. There will also be a phone option. I should reiterate, obviously people are always concerned about that if you're not familiar with apps, and certainly my parents would struggle with an app, then you can make a phone booking, and you'll be able to call into the call center, and very similar information to them. One interesting thing I picked up when I previously did this, when one of Clara's colleagues joined me, is the app is very much like the way I explain it, because I've used the Uber app. It's very like the Uber app. You will put in a journey from here to here. It thinks about it. It gives you an option. You say yes, great. That'd be fantastic, and then it will track the vehicle as it approaches the place where it will come and pick you up, which I think is great, and I think it's very, very interactive and very user friendly. The question what asked was, what about for if you're calling, you don't get that live information, but apparently you do. Apparently you do get, and Clara will give you more. I won't quote the times on this, Clara, but you get you get a notification to say that it's approaching the stop, and you need to head to your stop now. It's on demand. You can book up to 24 hours in advance. The intention is, and I believe, and Clara, please correct me on this, one of the risks we found with people booking long time in advance is they don't turn up for the service. And it's trying to, again, this is one of those learning points we'll have to adjust, and we'll see how it goes. But that's the point, is you booked it, you're committed to that journey, you're going to make that journey. The maximum wait for the on-demand trip is an hour, 60 minutes. So you'll book it, and the longest you will have to wait is an hour. That's contractually in there. So we will hold the operators to account to make sure that is happening. And the app and the algorithms that run behind the app will match you with customers to try and maximize that journey time, to make sure that you're getting a good quality service, but also it's matching you up with other people who want to make similar journeys. The buses are 16-seat minibuses. They will be running across all 3 zones. There's 30 of them. And they will be available for people to access. You can access wheelchairs on them. They have to be by law compliant with disabilities. So we have that. One thing just to flag here is because of the short time scale of getting this up and running, those vehicles will change during the summer. We will have, not all of them, but some of them will change. We're getting vehicles in on a short-term basis, which will then be upgraded to higher spec, higher quality vehicles in the summer, but they all have to be compliant with equalities law. And just to be clear on the timescales here, there's a slight confusion. Like I said, the FTZ pilot, the demand responsive one, was running on a different timescale, and that was very much supposed to be a very specific trial. And so they've got slightly different timescales operating in that part of the region. However, the rest of the region, at the moment, is Monday to Saturday, 7 till 7, with no Sunday service. And I've actually had lots of people commenting, well, I want a Sunday service. I want to be able to get out. I want to be able to go, go out and meet some friends, and have a couple of beers, and then be able to get it home afterwards in an evening. So again, that's part of that learning process for us. If there is shown that there is likely to be demand for that type of provision, then that's something we will consider for any further upgrades. Just one thing, the standard fares will be as per the background bus service. So there's, at the moment, we're working on the £2 adult, £1 child offer as a standard fare. All concessionary and older persons bus passes will be accepted. One of the challenges we have at the moment is we are unlikely to have through ticketing available for launch. We are working on it, and we want to make sure that happens. It's not ideal, I know that, but what that does mean is that you would have to purchase a ticket, and then if you made an onward journey on another service, you would have to purchase another ticket again. But we're working on that, and we just won't have it ready for the launch date. Just unfortunate situation, that one. You will be able to pay via debit card or cash if necessary when you're on the bus. So yeah, there will be multiple ways you can pay for it. You can, if anybody's used the Uber app, you enter your details and it automatically comes from your bank account when you make the journey. or you will do the other operating tickets that you would normally do. And then I'll hand over to Clara, who will take you through a little bit more of the technical detail about the app.
Great, thank you, Phil. I'm super happy to be here tonight and talk you through some of this. My name is Clara. I'm the project manager from the technical provider VIA. We provide over 250 of these kind of DRT schemes over the whole world and 29 in the UK. And I've been working with the team for a long time to try and set up the service in a way that the technology supports what we're trying to achieve, which is make transportation more accessible in this area. Great. So I'll talk you through how the app works, but let me say up front that although I'm going to talk you through some slides on registration and booking through the app, we will also have phone booking as well as a web app, which you can just access over your desktop. The process will be quite similar, the core idea that I'll express today, but we do want people to be able to book in whatever way possible. So what you can see on the slides are the application. The first thing that you'll have to do in order to book a ride is register an account. This you'll do by inputting your phone number, and you'll immediately get a code to fill in. So these are the second two images that you can see on the slides. After you've done that, you'll be asked to give your name, last name, and email just to create the account, and then you'll be able to book a ride. So let's pass on. You'll also be able to add payment methods directly to the application upon registration, as well as if you have any additional mobility needs, that'll be asked in the registration also. And that way you can book seamlessly and have the payment flow through the application, not think about it later. Great. So what happens when you've registered and now you have the app in front of you? Yeah, that's a great question from the chat. So someone's asking, I can't find the app in the Play Store. The applications aren't yet in the Play Store nor the Apple Android Store. They will be available shortly before the service launches. Great. Okay, so we've gone through registration. Now we've popped into the service zone, which is what Phil just described. What we'll have to do in order to book a ride is we'll have to input our pickup location and drop-off location, and we'll get a proposed ride. The application will always recognize your current location, so you won't have to pick that out. You'll only have to choose your destination. Great. Then in your booking, you can choose how many passengers you're going to be riding with, or if you have any additional needs for the booking. And there are two ways of booking, as Phil described. There's immediate bookings, which are appropriate for example, I want to go to the supermarket and I want to leave now. Let's see if I can get picked up within 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but I know approximately this afternoon I'll go to the supermarket. And then there's, of course, the option to pre-book. This is for 1 day in advance. For example, if I know that tomorrow I have an important doctor's appointment and I want to make it by 11, then the app can guarantee that you will be brought to your destination before 11, so you can meet your appointment. Any of both of the options you choose, there are standardized communication flows in the application, so you'll be notified per SMS. This is if you book over the phone or over the web app or over the rider app, you'll get an SMS notification saying when your van or when your Westlink is about to arrive. You'll also be able to see, if you have the application, you'll be able to see exactly how the Westlink is driving towards you, and also what your route will be. So you have full overview over where you are and where you're heading. Exactly. This is what you can see here. As you can see on the right-hand side, you can see exactly how the van is traveling towards you. On the left-hand side, what you can see, which is very interesting, is that we have uploaded also all the local bus data in the application. So whenever there is a bus route that is suitable for your journey, we will also show you what that would look like, and you have the choice to take that bus or not. In the middle image, you can see what I was talking about in terms of pre-booking your ride and predefining the time slot that you want to travel in, you'll have kind of a clock that you can go through. Great. You'll be able to see your ETA at all times, as you can see on the right-hand screen. Okay, I'll give it back to Phil.
Thank you, Clara. And that's the end of the presentation. So I will stop sharing because I like to see people rather than have my screen half blanked out. Any questions? I did notice one that was quite a pertinent one, I guess, popped up in the chat. I guess that we need to be very clear on this, that this isn't intended to replace the supported services. It was always something that was part of our bus service improvement plan. The funding for that runs till 2025. The intention, obviously, and the hope is that we will, and to be very clear, that funding was for innovative and new services. And the obviously our desire and our drive and what we're doing at the moment is to try and make that service work. So it's in a commercially viable situation by 2025. We know that's a challenge, but I've worked on some of these schemes previously where we haven't really thrown everything at it like we are at the moment. We haven't had international operators such as VIA on board as well. So, you know, we're in as good a position as we can be to try and hopefully make this a commercially viable operation.
Thank you very much, Phil. Appreciate that. And also Clara. Questions from the floor. Sarah Warren.
Hello, Phil. Thanks for a great presentation. I have got a few questions here. I wondered if you have a timeline on the through ticketing and when that will be up and running, do you think? I've got another question, which is, might there be scope to extend the operating hours if it turns out to be very busy? I've got another comment, I guess, that maybe you can comment on, which is that apparently the mayor says it may not be up and running for the 3rd of April. And I'm also interested to know, given that someone's written a comment saying about how busy it's likely to be because of the number of other routes that we are losing, in the contract with the operator, what kind of ways do we have to ensure that the maximum wait for an on-demand lift is 60 minutes? Thanks.
Chair, would it be okay? How it's worked for me previous ones for these is that I've let people to answer all the questions and I've tried to answer them because there's sometimes quite a few overlapping questions, and it hopefully simplifies it. So are you okay to play it that way and let everybody ask the questions first?
Yes, I've got no argument with that. If it's worked before, I've got no basis for what's right, what's wrong.
Thank you.
Are you comfortable with that, Sarah? Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, we'll go through reading along the screen in order that they are on the screen, otherwise I lose track. Councillor Matt McCabe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask about, let's say Preston English Combe. They're going to lose the 768, which went straight into Bath on that route, on the route on English Combe Lane. Now you're suggesting that the destination will be the park and ride. What opportunities are there to acquire other destinations such as Mount Road? Because previously there was a 42 bus from the park and ride that went down Mount Road past the shops and then down into Twerton before going on to the RUH. That was lost a while ago, but for my residents that was quite an important bus to the RUH. But I was just thinking about Mount Road shops. If we could arrange a destination there, then they can both get to the shops and catch the one into the city centre. I just wonder what opportunities are there to arrange new locations. And then the question, therefore, because that's over a boundary, is will there be a facility for the bus to come and pick you up if it's dropped you off outside a boundary, or would that actually need to extend the boundary zone to touch where you pick up the service into the city centre? Also, I don't know if Jean's going to ask this, but Shoscombe had a shopping bus that went into Midsummer Norton. Is the idea therefore that they will get a lift into Midsummer Norton, or will it be out of the village and up onto the 367 to catch the 522 or something like that? Yeah, what would be? Do we know that level of detail yet?
Thank you, Matt. David Orme.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thank you both for that informative presentation. Hugely interesting. What plans has WECA got to get that information out to residents? Because that's a hell of a communications challenge, and I'm interested to know how you're tackling it.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Jean. Sorry, you're on mute. Still on mute, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Matt did say that was part of one of my questions that I was going to ask. First of all, is Shoscombe covered? Because on the map, although it says Peasdown, it doesn't actually mention Shoscombe. We did have a weekly bus run by CC Coaches that is finishing at the end of this month. It was only on a Wednesday, but it would take residents into Midsummer Norton, to the bank, it would take them to the post office, and it would take them to Tesco's, and then it would wait and bring them home. Now, are we saying that if Shoscombe is included in the DRT, that they would then have to come up to Peasdown to get a bus, and then to go to Midsummer Norton? And the other thing I was going to ask is, you mentioned the supermarket, so Tesco's is the obvious one, but say they were going into Bath, would it take them to Sainsbury's at Odd Down, or would they have to walk from somewhere? And I'm worried about people who have a disability or limited mobility. And my other question was, the £2, is that one way or is that return?
Okay, thank you, G.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pat Caudle.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm on the same vein here as Jean and Matt, because we from Wellow have the 757, and I speak perhaps from the two passengers who come from Coombe A, one of which has a quite severely disabled daughter who comes in the holidays on the weekly bus on a Wednesday to do the shopping at Tesco. This is our only bus. It's going. It carries people who don't have computers, they don't have mobile phones, and the thought for them of being dropped up at Odd Down and having to sort out a bus to take them to Tesco fills them with extreme worry. I don't think that you understand the concerns that they have of this system, which, I mean, a DRT, let's face it, is a taxi. And the thought of having to book a return fare and having possibly to wait an hour for it is quite unreasonable. And I'd like to know what WECA suggests for people like them.
John, you're on mute, just realised.
I did say, despite his experience, Fiona Gurley, I hope I pronounced your name right.
That's correct. I would echo both Jean and Pat's concerns. I've met people in all three villages who are very worried. You know, the once a week bus to Midsummer or to shopping is very convenient, and they've fitted their lives around it. And the idea of having to get another bus somewhere else and carry their shopping, I think is very worrying. I'm also concerned about people being dropped on commercial bus routes, that, for example, the D2 in Hinton Chart House, where there's already a lot of people who get there, and what happens if you can't get on that bus? They have to wait for the next one. I mean, I think the fact that people are going to be fed into these particular nodes and then may or may not be catered for by a commercial service is something else to be concerned about. And I'm wondering what Westlink is fancying is planning to do about that in terms of liaison with the commercial services.
Thank you very much, Fiona. I think I would add to the list of questions, firstly, echoing the points raised by the last calls, we've got exactly the same concerns in Preshford. But slight concern is, as well, I picked up that the service will not be going into Central Bath. The question is, what constitutes Central Bath? Because links are needed with the health service, with the RUH, and with the doctor's surgeries. So my question is, our key for want of a phrase, key terminal locations being considered other than just a global Central Bath? Thank you. And that, I think, ends the questions.
Yeah, do you want me to? I think
It's
that's
over
just
to you,
some popping up on the questions
Phil,
as
I'm
well.
afraid.
Yeah, obviously there's quite a few overlapping there. So what I will do is I will try and answer them all. Please do put your hand up if you feel I haven't responded to your questions. I'll do the best I can, because there were a few that kind of were quite similar and overlapped each other there. I guess one level of reassurance, and I'm happy to put the map back up actually, is the intention of this. Some of the places you talked about there, Wellow and Shoscombe, for example, going to Midsummer Norton, the intention is that's exactly what it will be doing. It will be taking you within the zone. You can travel within the zone. In fact, you can travel into Brislington if you want to, or you can travel to Portishead on it if you want to. I'm not sure whether that would be the quickest, most great route for you to do it in that way, but you could go to Bristol Airport, well, quite close to Bristol Airport, if you should wish to do so. So it will take you anywhere within that zone. As far as the issue about taking you within Bath, which is not currently within the zone, that's something that we are under review. And Clara, I know we've talked previously about key destinations such as hospitals or places like that. Have you got anything else to add on that? Because
right, so I can definitely highlight that special locations on the map. Special locations within the zone will be highlighted on the map, as well as in the list of booking locations, so they're much easier to find, and you'll be incentivized to book towards those. I think if I may, Phil, I can also say a brief comment on the passengers with special mobility needs. So that is something you'll be asked upon registration, and the system will be able to keep that into account in terms of your pickup and drop off. So for the majority of people that are just booking, you will be allocated a nearby bus stop. But if you have special mobility needs, you will be picked up at your doorstep, as this is, of course, as you very well said, a huge concern of having to then find the bus stop or book a return.
I guess the question there, Clara, was really about key destinations that are outside of the zone, for example. And I know it's something that we've been juggling with how we deal with that.
Right. So currently bookings are only possible within the zone that we have allocated. All the pickup and drop off location should be within that zone.
Yeah, so obviously that's going to be part of our review process, and I'm really happy to take feedback on that. I guess what we need to do is show there's a clear evidence base for something that might need to change. So please do share with us those concerns and issues, and we'll build that evidence base to make sure we can build in those changes as appropriate. What have I got? So I guess one of the things you talked about there, and I'm not sure whether this is answering the question completely, was about the onward journey and whether the bus would turn up for that onward journey. Something we've been doing is working with the operators locally to look to see whether we can enhance some of those corridor services and hopefully build them to be commercially viable as well. Services such as 379, for example, we've been looking at. We've obviously got the 522, which will be coming forward, which is we tendered it as a park and ride site, but service, but the operators have tendered it, have taken on the commerciality of the sections taken into the city centre at either end. I don't think that necessarily answers the question, but it's something we're looking at doing, is how we can start to build that confidence back in the wider network, for how people can have that confidence they can turn up at a stop and a bus will be there. I haven't got a magic wand. I'm not I'm a program manager. I'm not a transport public transport specialist necessarily, but that's something we're working with the operator to try and work out how we make sure that that stops happening, because we know it is a key problem. Journey planning there was something that we were keen to ensure, and that's going to be in the next iteration. Again, it's something we just haven't had the capacity or the time to be able to get built into the app from day one. But something we're keen on looking at is that onward journey. How do we give you that information about that onward journey to give you that level of reassurance? So if you can get to this bus stop by 10 past the hour, then your onward journey will arrive at 15 past the hour and you'll be able to get the bus onwards. So we're really keen on working with Clara and colleagues to try and build that in there. So we just improve that information that people are getting for all of their journey. The £2 single is the ticket. It's not it. That's what it is at the moment. If you're on the bus, it's a £2 single journey. There will be multiple ways to pay that as well. We are looking at getting various machines on the buses. Those who've used buses recently, and I'm a big advocate of it, is the tap on, tap off, where you can just use your card to do that. So we're looking at getting those readers onto the machines, onto the services as well, so you can do that. Communication, I think, is a really important one, and thanks for whoever said that. We would ideally have started communicating this about a month ago. Well, probably about 6 months ago, ideally, if I'd have had the time to do it. We know we should have been, very much the message whenever I've been out to talk to people is you should have started this, in February, and I can't disagree with it. We really should have been doing it earlier. The challenge we've had is we've started this from, this sounds like I'm crying tears here, but we started this in mid-January. So we've been running at 1 million miles an hour to get ourselves ready for the launch on the 3rd of April. Our full intention is to start putting communications out next week. But the big one will be the last 2 weeks before launch. It's not ideal. I completely, agree with that. But we've got a whole raft of things we're going to be trialing. And I'll be honest, we're not going to stop on the day we launch. We're going to continue right through till the summer about how we get and communicate people. So it might not be that we've got all those communications out and ready for the 3rd of April launch, but we will start communicating it 2 weeks before that launch properly. And one of the things I've just been commenting on, for example, just before I joined this meeting, was a radio script of all things. It's way outside of my scope of knowledge, but I'm just making sure it technically read right, so that we can get that onto local radio and start to tell people about it. There'll be lots of other things such as that. We're looking to whether we can, tapping into local. Another one I've just looked at is some script to go into the Chew Valley Gazette, I think it's called, and how we get that information out to different local media, and I'm very happy to take any feedback on that, any input, anything can help us with, any local magazines that you think might be useful for us to get information into, local forums, whatever it may be. I appreciate you've all got your local contacts that really help us with it, and we've had a lot fed to us by various different people, which has been great, but we're always happy to take any more from that as well. So please do feed them to me. What else we got here? Journeys within return journeys. So I think there was a question there about how do you book a return journey, and it's very similar to booking your journey outbound. You can book a return journey at the same time as you're booking your outward or onward first journey. Sometimes that will be fine to do that. One of the challenges we said was the risk it always is if you're traveling, for example, and I'm sure you will know this, into central Bristol and then intending to come back out in rush hour, it might be wise to book it when you leave your destination rather than, and it's a connecting journey. So because the traffic flows in Bristol, it only takes one breakdown, one emergency bit of roadworks, and suddenly the network is not in a great place, and the risk is that you end up missing your connection. As it were. So yeah, that's going to be part of our messaging when we start to put that type of information out there as well. Really good clearly we do want it to be high demand, and we want people to use it, and it would be a really nice problem to have, that we might have to look at how do we expand the service, because demand is very high, and I'm hoping that's where we're going to be, and we will look at how we can do that, how we can expand the service. The one message I've had from Clara and her colleagues is the algorithm that works behind the app learns. It's a smart algorithm, so it will learn where demand is likely to be, and it will learn how to cope with that demand. There will be places within the network where we will hopefully we will have very high demand, other places where we have lower demand. So it will learn where to point the vehicles and make sure they're in the right place at the right time. 3rd of April, how confident? All I will say is that the project team working on this are all guns blazing to make sure we launch on the 3rd of April. And there's a phrase one of my managers says that we're all running around with the hair on fire at the moment. I haven't really got any hair left to go on fire, to be honest, but we are running at 1,000,000 miles an hour to make sure that we launch on the 3rd of April. And we accept that on the 3rd of April, it will not be perfect. Well, I've just flagged some things which will not be perfect for the 3rd of April. And I'm sure something will go wrong at some point. Touch wood, it won't be anything major. But we will launch on the 3rd of April and we will keep updating and adapting. It won't be exactly, but by the 3rd of August, it won't be exactly like it was on the 3rd of April. Things will have changed, things will have adapted, we'll have upgraded things. Things will look different. So we will launch on the 3rd of April and there will be service available, but it may not look exactly like that. We will learn lessons from it and hopefully we'll get feedback from all of you as well. And then I think there was something there about just upgrades, that through ticketing timescale. I can't give you that exactly yet. I don't know whether you've got anything you can add to that, Clara, about looking at how what's the timescale looking like for that through ticketing and how with that upgrade.
This is for
so you can buy, so you don't have to buy two separate, you don't have to, every time you've got to get off and then get on to something else, you have to buy different tickets.
Yeah, of course. So I think the most straightforward way to do that is exactly how it would work on the bus, of having a kind of hop on, hop off system. However, I think that requires the hardware and the software to be installed on all the buses, as well as the connection between the systems. So I can't really speak of any concrete timescales now, as it mostly relies on that hardware rather than our internal ticketing system.
Yeah, I think the only thing from my perspective, I very much hope it's likely to be more like a month or two, not 6 months or a year, that we'll get this upgraded. It will be more like late spring, early summer by the time we get to that position. But I can't commit to a definitive timescale on it, I'm afraid. And the increase of operating hours, I mean, yeah, it's part of that review process. You know, if that's the case, then we'll proverbially knock on Clara's door and say, can we have a conversation about looking at changing the operating hours? And we'll work out, you know, can we do it? Can we afford it? Demand's there. We think it is. Let's have a conversation and make it happen. Again, it's one of those. If we get enough pressure to increase the operating hours, we'll look at how we can do it. I'm aware of the fact that what I've just said there, I think I've answered most of the questions, but it's triggered a whole raft of different hands coming up. So
it has, hasn't it? I've noticed that too. This conversation could go on and on and on. I think it's important we capture the questions and then possibly come back to them with a later response, if that's okay.
Yeah, just to add to that. Sorry, John, to butt in there. This is really useful information to us, and one of my colleagues is going to view this tomorrow, and she's doing it for all the forums we're going to, and building the FAQs on the back of the types of questions. So it's all useful stuff. So even if I can't give you a definitive answer tonight, there will be something coming out soon that will be on the website. And if you still feel we haven't captured your answer, then please do get in touch with us afterwards as well.
Okay, that's fine, Phil. Thank you, Jean.
Yeah. This is quite quick, I think. You mentioned about Tesco and in Midsummer Norton. Are you saying that the DRT would actually take them directly to Tesco? They wouldn't have to get on a bus in Peasdown or in Midsummer Norton? And my other question is, I noticed that obviously it's not a Sunday service, but what about bank holidays? We've got quite a few coming up.
I don't know the answer to the bank holidays. It's a good question, Jean. That's a good one. Yeah, Sunday. There's no Sunday service, but bank holidays. Clara, do you know that off the top of your head? Public holidays?
Yeah, there will be no service on public holidays.
Yeah. Sundays and public holidays, no service. Again,
right.
But yes, just to answer very quickly, Jean. Yes, it would be able to take you to Tesco or to the closest bus stop to Tesco.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Hello,
yes,
Pat.
I am concerned about this because in 3 weeks' time we will have had the last bus, and I say our only bus, to take people shopping. we have a small village shop which doesn't fulfill all their requirements. And I just wonder what they're supposed to do. These are people who live on benefit by and large, and they're pensioners. And it's very concerning that at the drop of a hat, all of a sudden, there's no bus. There's no way to get out of the village. It's the only time some of them ever leave the village. And I don't think that you understand the problems, you know, the stress that it's causing them. It's completely different from living in a city where you've got other buses. I mean, why can't we replace the 757? To me, that seems such a simple answer. And instead of saying they can't do that, I can't see why they can't do it. You know, we're paying for this service. Why won't they do what we want? We have a bus that's full every week from Wellow and Shoscombe. That's, I don't expect an answer now, but I just want you to understand how angry this makes me.
I think it is important to me to explain the difference, and it's a very technical difference, which is sometimes challenging. The funding that we've received for the bus service improvement.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept that answer. I don't want to be rude to you.
Okay, fine, thank you.
That's rubbish, absolute rubbish.
Happy to chat offline if you want to, Pat.
Thank you. Neil.
Hello, sorry, I wasn't expecting to come, as you know, but back a bit earlier at the hotel, we're away at the moment, I'm afraid, sorry about that. I was just wondering, can Phil point to any other areas of the country where there's been a very similar model, and if so, how has that worked out?
Clara might be able to help with this. Off the top of my head, I know that there are similar systems running in Pembrokeshire, the West Midlands.
Yeah, exactly. So let me, if I can. So there's 250 services we support, like our system helps run, which are operated by local operators. And in the UK, there's 29 very similar services. Or for example, in the Milton Keynes Council, it's also a very large, more suburban area that has operated for over 3 years now, and as well as one service in Wales across the other side of our area. So a couple ones, all different use cases. So sometimes it's an urban area where you have night transportation to kind of fill the gaps in the public transportation. Other times it's a more suburban use case, and we have many services I have also helped set up, which are at this scale, right? So 30 vehicles and also a huge service zone with the use case of connecting more suburban areas or rural areas to the urban ones. And it's hugely successful. There's obviously a ramp up time for riders to get accustomed to it, but we also operate services with big ridership numbers that are older and book through the phone, and we do campaigns to help guide and teach how to feel comfortable with the web app or the app, and we see that over the coming months the ridership grows and definitely rider satisfaction grows as well. I hope that satisfies your question. If you have.
Okay, thank you. We can
Thank
always.
you. Could I just ask whether there's anything very similar to the issue that Pat has outlined with respect to the removal of the 757 and the replacement of this? Is there any comforting parallel?
Yeah, so yes, so maybe not particularly in the UK, but globally we have definitely had bus replacement services which have worked well, and we have been speaking with the WECA team to our lessons learned on how we should communicate this and what will be important to keep in mind to keep people on board and comfortable with the service.
Okay,
thank you. Maybe this is something to take forward at the parish liaison with the other forums together. Fiona, and then we'll move on.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Sorry, I can't find my yellow hand. I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned that time's running out, and I think Fiona Gurley the best way to try and contact the parishioners is through the newsletters that we have. And I know that we need to have something in the newsletter by about the 22nd of this month. Is there any chance that somebody could send us a script? Otherwise, I can't remember how to sort of précis all this information. And I think we all need to maybe sing from the same hymn sheet. So would it be possible to send the clerks a script for our next newsletter?
Yeah, do we have a mailing list that we can do that for?
Yeah, if that can be done through Mark and the forum.
Yeah, very happy to do that. However we can get this information out there, I'm very happy to do that.
And that's a very, very fair point. The more consistent the communications, the better.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll second what John said, Phil. We can get that information right out across all of the parishes across Baines. If we can be provided with a script or a basic sort of press pack, we can get that to them ASAP as soon as it arrives. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Mark. I'll take that away. Make that happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Phil and Clara. That's been very interesting indeed, and has certainly helped us know how to proceed at the parish liaison meeting next week. Well, certainly for me, I actually understand more about it now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you to everybody for the questions. I think it's for us.
Yeah. If I could, sorry, something I meant to ask at the start, if people could please drop their name and which parish they're from in the chat, that'd be very helpful to know who's present. The equivalent of passing a sheet of paper around a face-to-face meeting. I noticed that at least 4 people have left the meeting. So, meal culpa, we missed them. Okay. Apologies, I've got the lurgy as well on top of everything. So just as well we're not face to face. Well, that's in the snow. The rest of the forum, we've decided that actually there are 3 areas for discussion. Looking through what journeys does public transport need to support? So in other words, the what are your current experiences of public transport? And how do you feel rural transport should be delivered in the future? WECA have just presented a solution. Is this every solution we need? It might be a yes. It might. I don't know. It's something to put on the table. The thought was we either have a round table discussion or have breakout meetings. Given I can't count. I'm sorry. I know 10 different parishes to put us out into groups of 3 and go around it seems a bit of overkill. So I propose to open the floor to the thoughts of what journeys does public transport need? What do you feel your communities need? What are the key journeys? Now, from Freshford's perspective, if I take my chair hat on and my chair hat off, my parish hat on, the key journeys we need are shopping, which is Bath, Bradford on Avon and Trowbridge, 2 of which are cross-border. Health, got the RUH surgeries. Some surgeries are cross-border. And social, again, Bath, Trowbridge, Bradford, and also what isn't covered, hasn't been covered to date, east-west travel into village. You know, to travel from Freshford to Wellow is impossible. Doesn't exist. You have to drive, period. So I'll put that on the table as a starter for 10. I don't, if anyone's got any thoughts, views, feelings. Have a think. Robert. Sorry, you're on mute.
I think you can hear me now. Yeah, this is obviously a good question. I was going to ask everything. You know, we need support. Exactly what you said. In addition to the cross going, not going to those places, that seems that the setup at the moment, the DRT seems to, because it drops you at the edge of Bath and presumably the edge of Bristol, militates against really use. Or if you think about it, all public transport, whether in cities, suburbs, or wherever, it's A to B, and B is usually, we're talking the majority, a centre of some kind, not the perimeter of a centre. And therefore, that they should go into the centre of Bath, or for example. And I believe, I may be wrong, and the council from Wellow probably correct me, is that the Wellow minibus, which has been hasn't been mentioned for some reason, goes into Bath centre. Virtually all community buses go from A to B, picking people up on the way into a centre. Can you tell me, is this going to be considered in the long run?
Sorry, was on mute. This is a question of us defining what we want, what we need. So I would say what you're outlining gets added to the list, as does what's come up in the chat. Schools, how could I forget schools and work? Again, it's an interesting thing here. We're defining journeys, some of which will be satisfied by existing bus services, some of which will be satisfied by the WECA scheme. And I'm wondering, because some of these journeys are time restricted, I'm wondering how well they can be supported by WECA. I'm just speaking my mind off the top of my head. Do we feel that what's been said reasonably captures the high level need? Ruth, you've got my disease.
Okay, right. Sorry, I'm new to a lot of this. I couldn't find the hand either. I found something that said recognize hand gestures, but that wasn't it. I think it is great to see the innovation. So I like that. But I did read in the Keynsham News that it's going to join up. These WECA buses are going to join up with the X39, and the X39 is going to be every 15 minutes, which would be a big improvement, because one of the things that stops people using buses is the lack of frequency. Same with the trains. Keynsham, it's like once an hour. If you don't go in the rush hour, once an hour, that's not enough. It's not convenient for anybody. So I'll drive to Bristol or Bath. I'll drive, because once an hour is no good. So I like that. But yeah, I think you know, the innovation's good, but I'm not sure it's going to tempt people out of their cars. And I would like to know if people really use buses who are planning all of this. I really want to see them on the buses. I really would, you know, and, you know, because the people often who are organising it don't actually use it. I use them.
Could I just respond to that to reassure you, Ruth? I don't drive, so I use the bus, I walk, I cycle, I use all other modes basically, and I do get a lift sometimes off people, but I don't drive, so I'm a regular, but I use I was on the X39 last night into Bath and back again. I live in Brislington, so I get around by buses, not quite daily, but certainly 2 or 3 times a week at least.
The other thing about the buses is like comfort. It's just comfort, isn't it? Like today, you know, would a car driver choose to use a bus when you're going to sit and freeze at the bus stop? I'm not sure it's going to tempt people out of their cars. But
the key difference, the key difference there though is that you're not gonna leave the house until you know that you have to. You're gonna have the guarantee that the bus is coming at a set time. So the uncertainty of getting to your bus stop and perhaps having just missed it and then having to wait another 30 minutes, that's kind of taken away. I can second Phil that I also don't drive, and I'm very excited about these shared
good.
BRT buses.
Yeah, good to hear.
Yeah. Okay, Jean.
Can I just reiterate what Pat said about trying to keep something similar to the 757? We had it once a week. I mean, this is every day apart from Sundays. These people did rely on it and do rely on it. Doctors, hospital appointments, dentists, doctors and dentists up in Peasdown, and shopping and the bank. And it was only once a week, but I believe that was enough for a lot of people. So we don't think that we're asking for much, just to try and keep that, please, if they could just bear that in mind.
That's fine, Jean. Thank you very much. I think it's clear there's apprehension over the new scheme, and also interest, to be fair. Just thinking aloud, I'm wondering how much of it is fear of the unknown and how much of it is reasonable. I do not know. But I do share the concerns that have been raised by some in the chat. We've certainly got people in Freshford who are not as up to date with technology as one would hope. I think that's being kind. And are very resistant to change as well. That's not to say they're wrong, but it's a thorny subject, and I don't envy WECA. Mark,
Chair, I just made a comment, and sorry, apologies to jump in there, Chair. I just made a comment in the chat. Now, where not everybody may have read it. You know, I'm you know, we're in a difficult place with public transport. No ifs or buts about that. It's the prices have escalated crazily. I mean, I know the last tender returns, they're about 132% higher than they were previously. And money's challenging for local authorities. I completely and utterly understand that. Pressures are huge, and it's how do we come away from that? How do we move us into a different world? We haven't got the number of users back on it. We've seen some growth recently, which has been really helpful. Stubbornly stuck at about 75% of pre-COVID users, and we're up to about 83 now. But we're still a long way below where we were COVID, because commuter levels, the system, the network has been set up on commuters driving demand, and then that will fund other services. And commuters just, I'm probably never going to go back to how they were pre-COVID. So I'm really keen on looking at what does that wider network look like, what's the future? What's the next 20 years look like for that network? And it will have to do something different. And so I'm really keen on doing that and making sure that we get input from people such as yourself. And I've just put a comment in the forum and the chat about it, because I can't give answers at the moment, but it is a piece of work we are starting, and we've just got some resource in place. Started last week. They're starting to put the bare bones together of what the work we need to do, what the timescales look like, what budget we need for it, and how we engage with people. And we haven't got all the answers at the moment, but I just wanted to reassure people we're not just sitting there going, "Oh God, yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Nothing we can do." We know it's a problem, and we know it's a problem for a lot of people. So what does that future look like? And it may include Westlink. That might be part of the future. I don't know yet. We've got 2 years to hopefully learn lessons from that, but it might not. We don't know. So I'm willing to listen and learn lessons, and hopefully get people such as yourself to help us to shape that, and other communities right across the region to help us to shape it. I just wanted to make that point out there, that there will be more information. I'll come back to you once we got more information, some more meat on the bones, as it were, about what that might look like.
Thank you very much. I would ask, knowing the financial constraints that there are all round, knowing the work that Chew Valley have done on transportation, that the forums can provide a very useful mechanism into the communities. I'll leave that as a bland statement. And just to respond to Jan, with apologies, I was trying very hard not to say that people will never be tech savvy. It's no solutions are can ever be fully technical. We're in the tier of government, we're in the third tier of government, and Baines are in the second tier, and we are duty bound to ensure inclusion of all. I mean, that's there in the statute. I'll leave it there. I was just trying to word things very clumsily, but not down people for not being tech savvy. So apologies, Jan. I'm not sure how I should word that, but hey, okay. The conversation hasn't really picked up on what do we need. I think we need to go away and have a look. Depends what people wish to do. We could discuss what our current experiences are of public transport and what we feel the future should be. What are people's feelings on this, Jan? Hello, Jan.
There I am. Sorry. I just feel like we're going around in circles with this a little bit. I'm sure that every single parish here who has been affected by the impact of bus service cuts has had lengthy conversations already within their parish councils, but also with their council representatives on Baines, and have had conversations with WECA. I certainly know that Barhampton has. So it seems a little bit odd to be trying to have a conversation where we collectively say what our needs are and what our concerns are and what we want, because we're all different and we've all got different challenges. We're all being treated differently. So I'm just not quite sure what the benefits are of talking this all through again, when some of us have got very specific needs and very urgent needs that are not affecting others. So I don't think a collective response is either going to be not specific enough, or it's going to take away some parish councils from the real focus that they need to have about their particular needs. So I'm not, I think we've kind of gone beyond that already as individual parishes. I'm sorry if people don't agree with me, but that, you know, that's how I feel.
Okay, I'll put on the table how I feel. I don't feel that we as a forum area have actually managed to state in the same way that Chew Valley have stated on transportation. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. And I think you've just hit the nail on the head on one reason, which is each of the other forum areas has a very clear geographical element or demographic, if you like. Whereas the Bathavon Forum is a donut around Bath, and we are multiple demographics. And it's very difficult to fit us into one response. Bathavon, you're quite a large area, and you've got very, very different needs to us who are out in the rural. We're just small rural villages with very different needs. And it's bringing the two together. I'm not sure that bringing it all together is the right way. However, we've been presented with what was going to be a consultation, but turns out to be, this is our solution. We're already there. What has been decided is what's being presented, not what do you want. And one of the key questions I haven't heard anyone deal with in any depth is need. And those needs vary and they need to be addressed and considered. I'm just speaking personally, rather than solutions that seem a good idea. It's cart before horse time, is what I'm bluntly saying. And from a frustrated position, I'm not in disagreement with you, Jam. So, hey ho. With that, I don't know if everyone else is in agreement. It's Brian.
I'm in complete agreement with what you have to say. I have to say that the question of people being tech savvy is something that worries me intensely. You know, not everyone's got a smartphone. Not everyone knows how to operate them. You know, I've got a smartphone. It's smart, but I'm not. And I have considerable difficulty in using apps. And I think that will apply, bearing in mind that this service is going to be used, I think, quite considerably by the older generation. And as probably the oldest people at this forum at the present moment, it does concern me. The other thing it concerns me is I have a vision of somebody standing at a collection point in the pouring rain, expecting something to turn up, nothing turns up, and they're completely stranded. What are they going to do? In the initial stages of this, will there be some form of emergency line that people could call within Baines to say, hey, look, I'm in trouble. I've got a problem. Can you help me?
I don't disagree with that, Brian. I think that's something to raise at the parish liaison meeting next time. It is, how do we support all the needs of, let's be blunt, the elderly?
Yeah. I think you've almost got a situation, and this is very fanciful, within the parishes of having a person to whom people can make contact, who is really savvy on this kind of thing and can tell them what to do. Someone they can ring and say, I've got a problem. Can you help me? What do I do?
Yeah.
You know, we've got a heck of a communication problem. You know, I think most people are just sitting back and saying, well, you know, something's going to happen. I don't know what. Let's see what happens when the bus stops running. And there'll be, I'm sure, within Englishcombe, there are going to be people who will be in contact with the chairman of the parish council saying, I've been waiting for the 367, it hasn't turned up. They don't know.
It does happen.
It's going to happen.
It does happen.
It is a very concerning, to me, a very concerning situation.
Okay, thank you. And anyone else with a view? Fiona.
Something we've talked about in Southstoke but haven't launched is the idea of having something a bit like having a designated driver. So almost having a rota within the village of people who have said, yeah, I can take somebody to, you know, the surgery on a Monday or, you know, whatever, and try and get a rota within the village. I mean, we don't have so far to go, I guess, other places, but it may be a responsibility of someone within the parish council who has that sort of transport responsibility, to whom, you know, people can ring and say, what do I do about this? How do I book? I mean, and again, we haven't taken it very far, but it's just this idea of having a rota of people who volunteered on a particular day to take people to wherever they need to go. But we could incorporate that with the demand transport.
We've got exactly the same in Freshford, where you can actually have, we call it Link, where you can actually have a door-to-door lift. So, and that's often used for surgery visits, for hospital visits, for those who are in need, and the whole service is run via phone. To be inclusive. Okay, I think we can go round and round in circles. I propose we call an end to the meeting, because I think we're going to go round in circles on previous experiences and future needs. Our brains are turning over and over with what we've just received from WECA, which is no bad thing in itself. We've got the parish liaison meeting next week, and questions can be put to WECA through ALCA for the parish liaison meeting. I'm not saying put them to me, but if you put them to WECA, you'll have time to think about what you've heard and what you're really wanting to ask. Okay. So if you're in agreement, I'll call an early end to the meeting. And thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John.